about. So I think the pathway into a ministry job is actually really unclear. If you're just in your church doing volunteer ministry and thinking, I'd love to get a job one day, but how do I get a ministry job? What is the pathway to get there? Like, that is not written down anywhere.
This is the After Dinner Mint, a podcast of stories I tell you at dinner. Think of the mint as the stories you tell after you've been kicked out of the restaurant, holding a mint, standing in the street, telling more honest stories with your friends than you did at the table. It's not a sermon. It's not advice. It's not self-help. We're processing what we're learning about faith and life, honestly, in community. I urge you to do that with our God and our communities. Hey guys, it's Beck. Welcome to season 2 of the After Dinner Mint podcast. I'm here today with Maddie and Alexia Horton. If you guys could please introduce yourselves and then tell us about your experience in like paid and volunteer ministry. So no pressure, but Alexia, you get to go first.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me. I'm Alexia and I'm married to Ash. He's a pastor here down in Coburn Central at Southern Christian Church. And I have 2 kids, one high school, Nadia, and one finishing primary school, Kevin. At the moment, my job is part-time and I work at Trinity Theological College. So I'm the women's ministry advisor there. I suppose the main thing I do is support the female students that are studying their degrees. So supporting them at the moment in their studies, what's going on in life. But I guess my passion is for seeing them being really prepared for ministry life after college. That's what I love about my job. There's lots of other things I do at Trinity alongside that role, but that is the focus of what I do, and it's great.
That's beautiful. And before I jump into Maddie, just give me like a little bit of a bird's eye overview of some of the kind of volunteer and pay roles you've had before ending up in like the theological college.
Yeah, so I suppose my journey into ministry is a little bit roundabout because I suppose it started off okay. Before you have children, things are a bit more straightforward.
News to me.
Yeah, that's right. I worked full-time for a while, but as a lawyer, so that's what I originally trained as. But I'd always thought about doing ministry full-time. So I suppose the next step was to do MTS, which is a ministry training strategy apprenticeship for 2 years at the University of Western Australia. And so that was full-time. That was awesome. And then after that finished, I thought if I'm going to be in ministry, I really need more training. So I thought about going to theological college. I started study. I did 1 unit and then I had my first baby. From there, study was a slow crawl as I had kids doing study part-time. After that, I would have loved to have got a ministry job, but between kids and my husband being a pastor of a church, that wasn't going to happen. So I suppose my ministry experience then was volunteer, though at whatever capacity I had at the time. Mm-hmm. And it was in those years when my kids started going to school, I thought about, what do I do with my life? And this lovely job at Trinity was advertised, and I thought, I'm not sure I'm up to that, but I'm going to apply anyway. And it's been great. So that's where I am.
Amazing. Now, Maddie, like quick intro, because I know that we know you, but for people who don't know you, and then maybe tell us a little bit about like your volunteer and paid ministry roles.
Yeah, well, I'm Maddie. I have been a beneficiary of Alexia's work at Trinity recently. So I've been at Trinity Theological College, finishing off my master's degree. Almost done. Woo!
Oh, it's so exciting.
So I'm like handing in this week, and I'm like, bye-bye. I love Trinity. I'm actually going to be sad not to be there. But my experience in volunteer and paid ministry was, ever since I became a Christian as a young adult, getting involved in things like youth group, leading Bible studies, being trained and equipped myself in more of an informal way as a volunteer. And then I just, after hearing the gospel, I just had a passion for wanting other people trained and equipped in God's word, because I felt like I needed training and equipping. So it was just something that I remember, deciding whether I would go to uni or do something in ministry training. And that was a real toss up for me. But it was always, I decided to go to uni first and get a little bit of kind of secular experience just in a paid job and something outside of the ministry world as a beneficiary as well, to benefit my ministry in future, in the sense that I know what it's like for other people to be I'm ministering to in the secular workplace, doing the daily grind. And so it was always a bit of a, interim thing to be working in that role. And so I always knew I wanted to go into ministry, which kind of got fast-tracked a bit when I got tapped on the shoulder for a 1 day a week traineeship at Prof Midland, where I'm at now. So I started doing that, and it was kind of being trained up in a actual vocational capacity as well. So that was great. And then decided to go to Trinity because everyone I knew seemed to go to Trinity. And I was like, oh, that's what people do. And then I've been working on and off. And then I had quite a bit of time off paid ministry while I'd finished off my degree. And so a lot of that was volunteer that I did as well. So I've been in and out of either. Some of my roles were quite similar, but, volunteer and paid ministry as well over the last, 10 years really.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, mate.
That's me.
I love it. I love that, like, speech was basically your, like, version of Paul, like, making tents. You're like, I got to get trained in, like, making tents first before I can.
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was,
Yeah,
like,
wicked.
tenting with people.
Well, on that wonderful segue.
that was really valuable. It was really valuable because I learned a lot of skills from speech pathology I needed in ministry. And it wasn't even to do with speech pathology. It was just like organization skills, time management, people skills, life skills that were just really, really helpful. So, God knew what he was doing in leading me that pathway first.
He was like, sit up, make sure you don't choke. That's also important.
That is important.
Okay, so keeping us on track, I am Beck. I'm the founder of Stories I Tell You at Dinner. I trained as a clinical psych. I'm married to Zach. I have 3 boys. No one has paid me any money for ministry, but I've done things like run women's Bible studies. I coordinated a playgroup for a while. I dropped in one for about 5 years. That's pretty fun. So I'm only here to just be like, tell me the things. I'm super intrigued because today's topic came out of our like Ask Me Anything episode with Josie Rivet. So I'll link that in the show notes. But basically one of the questions was about pathways into paid kids ministry roles. So I was talking to Amy Stofar and she said like pathways into paid ministry is a whole topic on its own. Like you should interview Alexia. So it turns out it's not actually a whole podcast topic, but it's also Alexia's whole job. So basically in this chat, we're hoping to cover like the pathways into paid ministry for women and the barriers that women face, as well as some of those like counterintuitive advice for structuring your whole life, if that is your goal. So Alexia, can you just maybe give us a bit of an idea? Like what are some barriers you see for women who are seeking theological training?
Yeah, and I think there are some, so it's a good question. The things I'm going to talk about now are really things that I've experienced myself, but also what the students at college have brought to me as we've talked about it. So this is kind of a bit of a collection of things over the last few years that I've been thinking through. And what are some barriers to people coming both to Trinity, but also going into ministry or staying in ministry? So I think one of the things that keeps coming up over and over again is that pathways idea you were talking about. So I think the pathway into a ministry job is actually really unclear. If you're just in your church doing volunteer ministry and thinking, I'd love to get a job one day, but how do I get a ministry job? What is the pathway to get there? Like that is not written down anywhere. No one knows what that looks like. So unless you talk to people or see someone who's done it, then I think that's a real barrier to know where to start. So that's one.
Definitely. And what else?
So connected to that, I guess, is what I mentioned, people not being able to see someone who's done it before them. So having a role model of someone who is in ministry and has the job that you could see yourself doing. So I suppose in Perth, we're a little bit smaller in our Christian community, and seeing women employed in churches is not as common as it could be. And so, to aim for something where you can't see what it looks like, that's really hard. So having role models in ministry, I think that's a barrier, a lack of role models to see what you could be doing.
Yeah. Massively so.
Do you want more?
I do. I think like there's that. I think there's definitely like, does this job even exist? And like if you found that unicorn who was doing it, that's the type of person that you would, or maybe this is me being an extrovert, being like, hello, you don't know me, but I have many questions, and like, tell me exactly what you did and where did you go and who were your friends. But there's definitely that. But it also sounds like there are other barriers in terms of like perhaps your whole life as well. Like in terms of what women might face compared to say like a man who's like, I'm going to go into full-time ministry. It also sounds like there are women would grapple with different things.
Yeah, totally. So it might look a bit different for a guy just because you see a lot more men leading churches or in maybe what you would think of as a standard ministry role. But even the women that you do know in ministry, the ones I can think of, they're all doing different things and they all have a different job description. So yeah, I think it is really hard to see what someone does and how to get there. Yeah.
That's really interesting you said that, because I actually wondered if people found what can we do in ministry that's not pigeonholed into perhaps like this one, they only ever see women work in one kind of role, whether that's say like kids ministry or admin, you know.
Yeah, that's right.
And so this is and these are such valuable and awesome roles to have, but not every woman wants to be working or has kind of gifting to be working in those areas. So, what would you say to that person who is also going, like, is this the only role that women have in ministry?
Yeah, I'd say to them, I think that there is a whole wide variety of roles that are not just kids ministry or doing admin or the women's worker. So looking around Perth now, I'm really encouraged to see women working in all sorts of roles in ministry, whether that's, designing Sunday services or being part of like leading the connect or welcoming group or just being like an assistant pastor at large, like doing the things that are needed. So I think we might not see them and they might not be at our church, but there is a whole heap of need out there for women to be working in ministry.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thanks for that, Alexia.
And like,
Did
what
you
do
have
you think
anything to
women
add, Beck?
grapple with? I do. What do you think women grapple with that perhaps their male counterparts wouldn't?
I'm not saying that guys don't feel this, but I think probably women feel a lack of confidence more in perhaps their own ability or aspiration in what they would like to do. And so I suppose that links into another barrier I see for women going into ministry is that no one has tapped them on the shoulder. I love that you used that language, Maddie, when you said someone approached you and did that. If someone doesn't do that for you, then it's actually really hard to think about going into ministry under your own steam. And that doesn't mean that you're not capable or that you could be doing it. It's just that no one has encouraged you yet to do it or think about it. So I think guys do feel a lack of confidence as well, but not to the same extent in general that women do.
Yeah. And it's always worth, I guess, if you are someone who is considering that, having the conversation with your pastor and being like, what does this look like? Like, what would it look like for me to get more training, even as a volunteer, and then as a pathway to go potentially into some sort of vocational role in future? It doesn't have to be an immediate thing. I think we can often feel like, okay, for someone who wants to go into vocational ministry, how's it going to happen? How's it going to happen in the short term? How am I going to get a job like in the next couple of years? But sometimes it's actually, you do want to consider it a bit as a slow grind, because also to be in vocational ministry is you actually have, you've got a character. You need to examine your character. You need to be examining your faith, and it's very personal. It's not like taking up a role at a local hospitality joint or in a hospital somewhere where you actually leave it at home. You go home and you leave it at work, and you're there, you've got your work hat on, you come home. A ministry vocation does actually require your whole life to be in submission to God.
Yeah, and like leading on from that, I know when we talked, Alexia, you were saying, Trinity doesn't often recommend that, women come straight out of school and train. But then often what you tend to see is like, okay, well, if you've gone off and say like Maddie did, you've had secular training in some other degree, which is a really good thing to do, you're making tents. And then often then women are like married, having babies. Like it sounds like, or they are not married and not having babies. Like I think it sounds like on both levels, there's a level of complexity about this is my life stage, and then how does that also interact with theological training?
Yeah, definitely. I think you're right. Coming to do theological study after school, I think, does really preempt the whole process. You do want to get some life experience. You want to see what you're like as a Christian, as an adult, and see what life is like and all its hardships and its, living as a grown up, as a Christian. So you want to do that first. You want to do some volunteer ministry first. See if that is, either your gifting or something that you're actually motivated for. You don't want to be doing things for the wrong reasons. I think theological study is kind of it's a middle step in a whole training experience. So if I was to think of the default pathway of how someone gets into, say, full-time vocational ministry, after you've established, like, yes, have I got the character? Do I at least think I have the capability to do this? Is someone tapping me on the shoulder and thinking that I can do this? Then doing some full-time ministry of some kind, whether that's volunteer paid, that is got to be the first step, I think, before investing in, say, 3 years of theological study. And like you say, by the time you've done all that and you get to Trinity Theological College, say, women are either, having babies, thinking they would love to get married, or they are married. And so it's a life stage where there's lots of changes and lots of other decisions to make and to juggle at the same time. And I think that's just the way it is for us at the moment.
I reckon that segues into our second question really well. So, Alexia, why does the common advice to study when your kids are grown up, why does it sound right, but often doesn't play out well when women actually get to this stage?
Yeah, so I'm not speaking from experience so much here as just what I've heard multiple times from other people. But I can definitely relate to the feeling of when your kids are really little, life is so overwhelming, and why on earth would I go do study then? Yeah, like, I had kids who didn't sleep. I had other stresses in my life, like, why would you go do your study? But I have heard from people who have not studied at that stage or not taken any kind of training while their kids are small and then gone back when their kids are teenagers. Actually, it's so much harder to do it then. You think that the kids are at school, you think they're occupied and you're going to have all of this time, but actually the emotional toll and the taxi driving of kids in their teenage years, I think, is actually more complex than when they're small and in the baby toddler or like kindy kind of stage. So yeah, that's I've heard. And so I'm kind of thankful that I did pursue some study when they were small. I think it's got the added bonus of when you get to that stage of life and you feel like your time is freed up, to not start your training then, but to actually be then equipped to be doing ministry. So if you've had, say, a gap where your kids have been little and you haven't been doing very much for a while, to go back into doing ministry is actually really hard, and lots of people feel like they've lost their confidence or they've really got to get something back. The more training you've had before you have that gap and you have to go back, I think the more confidence you'll have in giving it a go again, to go, yeah, I've done this before. I don't really feel like I can do it now, but I know I can do it, so I can do it again. Yeah.
I like, just even in a secular example. So I did my training in clinical psychology. And so I was like having babies and working and then being like, I'll do a day a week of a placement and a day a week of like study, and just kind of being like, and then I will have another baby and I will like weirdly come back or whatever. Like, just kind of very slowly got my master's degree. And just every time I have 3 babies. But anyway, both times I had my older 2 and I would go back to work, and I might have, say, had a year off, and I was convinced that I know nothing. I have forgotten everything I've ever read. So I can, if it's like a longer period of time, it would be a bigger blow to your confidence returning back.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think as well, the early years can be a challenging, like, so it definitely sounds like a bit of a don't be scared off, from studying in this early stage. It is hard, but it's, don't be scared off by it because it's still beneficial. And I can definitely see the benefit in that this stage of life, like, it's hard enough to hear a sermon on a Sunday when you have little kids, because often you are having in and out with a little one, chasing a toddler. in the children's ministry, if your kid doesn't want you to leave them, or you're kind of, very much chopping and changing, it's actually, I think sometimes being more thoroughly equipped through that season can help ground you a bit more, because it's really easy to start kind of going afloat in that season of like, I've spoken to some women who had kids fairly close together, and they said, I realized I just wasn't even in on one whole Sunday service for 6 years. Didn't sit in on a service, didn't listen to a full sermon. And so, there's definitely, you don't need to be afraid of the being equipped in ministry through theological training in that season, because it also equips you for, perhaps other areas in your life that you're not being fed in the same way too. Maybe that might not be a reason, but it's still a thought.
Yeah. I mean, I guess my question kind of leads on from that, which is like, yes, if you were living like your best cry room life and, you're like, me turning up to church is practicing faithfulness because I'm not going to hear anything. What are the kind of small things, like, yes, you can't be in full-time training, and that's, like, yes, God has called you to a ministry in the home. Like, what is the middle ground between full-time study and not doing anything? Like, what kind of things are like adding little deposits in the long run?
Yeah, you're talking training-wise, Beck? Yeah, because...
Yeah, training-wise, like ministry-wise, like anything that's going to, you're like, if you're ultimately thinking, I want to head towards vocational ministry later in life or seek out a paid ministry role, what are those kind of things that are going to be helpful to, give you a bit of confidence a bit later?
Well, I reckon, like, volunteer ministry-wise, like, keep your head in the game with things like either leading a Bible study or meeting up with someone to read the Bible. Just keep doing like, leading a Bible study is not a small thing. I was about to call it a small thing. But those kind of things, I think, just keep your brain in gear, and just serving others and keeping on top of that kind of thing. Because even leading a Bible study, if you haven't done it for a while and then go back to it, that's really hard to get your confidence back to be able to doing that.
Yeah,
Like,
nice.
read books. I think, like, read some good books. So, yeah, don't, like, switch off your brain. You can take things slow. I think that's a way of training. You don't need someone to necessarily give you all the input. You can get it from books. So, yeah, keep improving and learning. Yeah.
Beautiful. Which I suppose kind of segues really nicely into our third question, which is, what advice would you give to a woman who loves ministry and has thought about paid ministry?
Probably Maddie alluded to this before, but the first thing I suppose you have to think about is your motivation for doing ministry. So if I was to start a conversation with anyone, that's got to be where you begin. Like, why am I wanting to do ministry and why am I wanting to be paid for it? So you need to start with the first one first. Like, why do I want to do ministry? Yeah. Am I doing this as a response to what the Lord Jesus has done for me? Am I wanting to see his kingdom grow? Am I wanting to see people grow in faith? Am I wanting to see people come to know him? You've really got to examine yourself and make sure you're not doing it because you think you have to. You're not doing it because that's where you think your sense of identity should be. Yeah, get your motivations right. It has to be out of a love for him and a love for people. So they're getting paid for it. I suppose my philosophy would be, actually, you want to kind of maximize your ministry in your life, no matter whether you get paid or not. So whether that's in a volunteer role, whether that's around the side, if you need to get paid, then yes, you need to get a job to support yourself and do whatever ministry you can around that. But if you've got your whole life and you can devote it to ministry, and someone's willing to support you and pay you for it, like, why wouldn't you do that? So I suppose getting that money thing in the right order, I think, is really important. Wanting to do ministry is the priority. Let's do it in such a way so I can do as much of it as I can so that I can still live and have money to live on. Yeah. So I suppose after that, if you're really thinking like paid ministry is the way I want to go, like, talk to someone who knows you really well. Like, that would be the next step. Like your pastor, someone at church who you serve under, get someone's opinion on whether they think it's possible for you. That's if you're not in the lucky position of someone having tapped you on the shoulder to kind of encourage you into ministry. Like, actually go seek out someone's opinion. I think that would be a really helpful thing to do, and especially at your own church. There's a great conference coming up in August called Challenge Conference. So that is a conference where people go to it if they're thinking about doing MTS, like the ministry apprenticeship. But you can go along to it without knowing much about MTS or the apprenticeship, because you can sit down there, hear some great talks on going into ministry, and you can have an interview with someone in ministry where they can ask you questions about your life, where you might be heading, what you might need. That's a great conference to go to meet other people who might be thinking similarly to you. That's run by PGP in Perth.
What is PGP?
Awesome.
Perth.
For those who don't know.
Yeah.
Lovely.
So like that's one thing you can go to anyway, to actually talk to people about whether paid ministry is for you. If it really is, then I suppose you need to get some training. Do some ministry first, whether that's volunteer, whether that's an internship, whether that's an apprenticeship. Like, get stuck into it, give it a go. Like, you need to do that before you invest financially in training. Because the next step, I suppose, is theological training. If you want to be in full-time vocational ministry, don't go into it without having your convictions and your foundations really solid. And that comes from doing some really serious study at theological college. And that's an investment. That's doing a degree. That's coming and using your brain and sorting out all your questions and convictions and making sure you've got things straight. So, yeah, you need some questions sorted out before you come to college. But when you're there, like, make the most of it. Use your time to study God's word and get your thinking straight. Yeah. Yeah. So that's probably the advice I'd give. And that's kind of the default pathway. And as we know, lots of life interruptions come in between those things. But yeah, that's in general what I would say to people.
Yeah. I think that's really helpful as well, that you reminded people that, that ministry, looking at ministry in a whole, not just in a vocational or non-vocational, but like, in a paid or an unpaid role, but also even in those seasons when you are, potentially doing, say, one day a week at church or doing something, it's actually not to lose sight of the opportunity for you still to give, to still be volunteering with some areas, even if your role might be somewhere else, not to burn out, but, to still be offering part of your time or resources in a way that is going to build up the body of Christ in a really helpful way that, obviously doesn't burn you out or anything, but in a way that is going to be beneficial. Yeah, I think it's also, that was really helpful. The thing from personal experience, the thing that stuck to me when I first started theology training, and I did the biblical theology and systematic theology unit. They're just two little half units that's like, what is biblical theology? What is systematic theology? And you just get a real rough overview of both. And I remember, I think it was Tom Bull, I think he actually said, like, theology is the only study that you will have that requires personal change, that your life should be impacted by what you learn. And which is completely true. There's definitely things that you learn at uni which you think, oh wow, this is a really useful skill that I use in this kind of in this area of my life, or wow, this helped me develop skills in these things, which has been really beneficial for this. But theology study, you should be learning, and it should actually be impacting your heart and your life and how you live your life in service of God and also in service of other people, as you grasp the various truths from the Bible and as you actually are, considering what it means to be part of a church and what it means for us to be those who are saved by God completely, not on our own merits. And, as you deep dive into all the little theological issues, or as you start reading the Bible a bit more deeply, this should actually change how you live, not just your brain. It's not an intellectual passing of information. It's a life kind of, it should actually be changing you.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible to practice as a clin psych and your whole life be falling apart, but you're like, I've got this hour with you, let's just hang out. But, you can't see the rest of my life and how what I'm saying is impacted by the rest of it. But you think, if you're in ministry, people are also watching your life. And, they live in the same suburb and they're like, I seen you, mate, yelling at someone at the shops.
No.
Yeah.
You have to have the consistency, and you have to, 2 Timothy, like 1 and 2 Timothy really call you. Paul is calling Timothy to live out like live a faithful life and to have good conduct and to have leaders that have good conduct who are faithfully living out like gospel-shaped lives. So yeah, you just can't necessarily go about thinking about vocational ministry as just its own thing, like its own bubble. So that's also something worth talking to someone about. Like Alexia said, that, hey, how is this, my life, how does vocational ministry how do you think it might go alongside my life as it is? Do you think there are things that need to either change, or also, am I at a life stage where vocational ministry will actually not be helpful thing for, say, my family? Or it's just worth asking those questions, examining, and just actually talking to people about it too.
Yeah. I mean, what I liked about what you said, Alexia, as well, is actually, would you be doing ministry anyway, even if you weren't getting paid for it? Like, is your life kind of
totally the
shaped around
question.
that? Yeah.
Yep. I think that's definitely the question. Like, I often ask myself that question for the work I do at Trinity, and yes, I would totally be doing the work I'm doing. Like, I love it that much if I was not paid. So, yeah, you should be asking that question of yourself. We're servants of God. When we get paid, that is so we can eat and so we can live. It's not a measure of your identity or what you're worth. Ministry is service, but you do need to be able to live. So I think some of the things that Maddie said about burning out, like some of us are really prone to just giving and giving and giving. Like be wise. You do need to actually live and eat and have somewhere to live. So you do need to take that into account. But as you're weighing things, would I do this job for free? Is this what I want to be doing with my life? Is serving Jesus, serving his people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I had it framed to me as, look, we'd love to, because someone came to me and said they wanted to offer me a day a week employment opportunity through my church. And it was really helpful the way they framed it. They said, these are kind of things you're already doing. We would like to liberate your time so that you do them more.
Yeah.
And it was actually just, I've never, it was such a helpful way to frame it that I've just never kind of gone back from that in my own thinking, that being paid to do this is liberating my time so that I can commit this and dedicate this time to the ministry role that I've been given, or like the works that I've been given and called to. So that was a helpful way to frame it.
And I think if you have that kind of idea in mind as well, you know that your training is never going to be a waste. So even if you don't know what's going to happen in life, even if you don't get a paid job later, like doing an internship or an apprenticeship at church, that's not going to be a waste. You're always going to be using that training for whatever volunteer ministry you find yourself in later in life.
Oh, man, I learned so much Bible. I'm never going to use that now.
Yeah, that's right. You can come and do things at Trinity that are not a 3-year degree. You can do things part-time. You can come and do something like Trinity Equip, which is like an unaccredited course, doesn't have the same assignments, study load, but you're still getting some training in Bible teaching and ministry skills. Yeah, there are many things you can do that will grow you and the way you serve others. Yeah, that won't be a waste later on, even if you don't know what kind of job or no job you might end up with. Yeah.
Yeah. They also do like Trinity at Night courses, which are just like 6-week little courses that are really good too. So
yeah, totally. Bite size. You can just jump in.
Yeah, it's great. And that kind of leads, we've just got one final question, and that's related to women who are in WA but perhaps don't live in Perth. What kind of options would you, Alexia, recommend to women who live in either rural or remote WA? How might they get trained up, and what does Trinity provide? Are there any good options you might recommend otherwise?
Yeah, I found this question really hard because I actually am feeling for women and people who want to do volunteer ministry, I suppose, be better trained in rural and remote WA, because I don't think there are a whole heap of options to come and be better trained. I mean, first of all, your church can do this. Your church pastor has been trained. He can train others. So, have a chat to them. But Trinity doesn't offer things online. I think there's really good reason for that, especially if you're coming to do a 3-year degree and you wanted to go into vocational ministry. I don't think you can be trained for vocational ministry online. I think you need to be able to see the lecturers and see their lives and interact them and know what they're like. And they need to be able to see you. So they need to be able to see you changing, absorbing, knowing you and your character. I think it kind of ties into what you were saying, Maddie, about theological study changing you. I don't think that's a great fit if you're doing that online and no one can see what has been produced in you by the end of it. You can hide online. You can't hide in the Trinity community. That's another reason I think to come and do it in person is all the other students that you get to meet, bounce ideas off, and they are going to be your support through ministry in life. The people that you meet at college, they're going to be your peers. They're going to be who you're going to be able to turn to later on. If you don't come and do it in person, you won't ever get that. So saying that, I think there should be some scope for people who aren't going into, say, full-time vocational ministry to be able to do some kind of training online, because there's no way that someone who wants to be better equipped in volunteer ministry is going to move up to Perth to come and do study. Life probably won't allow for that. We do offer some Trinity in town. So that's the Trinity at Night courses. Actually come and visit the regional areas and do your little Trinity at Night course in a day. So they've often run them in Geraldton or in Albany or some of the other regional centres. I had 3 women come from Bunbury and do Trinity Equip. And so I think Bunbury's probably about the furthest you'd probably want to come from to be able to travel up Trinity to do that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they would come on a Sunday afternoon, see family in Perth, then come to Trinity Equip on Monday morning, and then head home. So I suppose, we were really fortunate to have them and that they were close enough to be able to do that. I have one lady who comes up from Rockingham, so that's probably the furthest away we've got at the moment. But any further than that, I think it's really hard to find some good training online. Yeah.
Just as a point of interest, so my mother-in-law is in a small country town and her husband is a pastor. And she said that she did the 1 year more theological college, but back in the days where they did it via correspondence. And she was like, it was just stretching. Like,
Yeah. That is a great course to do. Yes. Well, I don't know if they offer that anymore. Yeah.
I think they do.
There is, of course, if you live down in the Great Southern, there is in Albany, they run the certificate level internship and training program. So that is a really great thing that the churches in Albany have done for the wider regional area, where you can actually go get some more training.
There's so many, it's lovely. There's so many theological, like Trinity theological graduates, around that area. It's really lovely to see. Which I suppose is that outworking of what you were saying, which is like, come and be trained here because these people will be your network.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Beck, I have a question that you can cut if you want to. But Beck, I have a question. You did get tapped on the shoulder and asked if you wanted to do some sort of training and
twice actually. 3 times.
Attention. Yes, you did get tapped on the shoulder.
Not a brag, I'm super humble. It's hard. It's hard being this.
Yeah, people just want you. It's great.
They do. Look, it's hard being popular.
I love where this question is going.
I have a question for you.
No, I'm just taking it all as like compliments. Yes, question, yes.
It's sometimes there are good reasons to say no to a vocational role or, to something like that. And I feel like you had some good reasons. And so I was wanting for you said no to doing further study. And why did you say no?
The first time I said no, I was at a prov church and they were like, come along, we think you'd be good at vocational ministry. And at the time I was like, oh, I'm studying clin psych and maybe, I want to get into clin psych and maybe I'll do it afterwards. And at the time I was like, that's where I was going. And look, it's not for the weak. You do like a 4-year degree and then you have to do like a lot of intensive study, like a lot. I had to go off and do other jobs so that I could get enough experience to apply for the master's degree. So I went off and like I worked in the prisons for a while. I'd worked in child protection. I was like, I have enough experience to apply. I think there was something like 250 applicants and they take 20. So at the time I was like, this is where I'm going. So I kind of was like, I can't do that now. But because I had but I always did lots of ministry stuff because I liked it. I liked running women's Bible studies. I got tapped a second time at our other church, the church we are now. And similarly to you, Maddie, they kind of were like, look, we can see that you're doing a lot. So I was running a women's Bible study, and I was coordinating the playgroup, which was like a team of 16 women. But at that point, and then I had also gone back to work, and I just was like, I can't in good conscience do any more things. I had 2 kids, a ministry commitment. I was running a women's Bible study in my house that was really large. Someone had to do the laundry and the cooking. So at the time I was like, I can't, I was like, and I was an apprentice. Also once you've got your clinical masters, you then have to go through an apprenticeship after that to be supervised by someone. So I was like, I'm still an apprentice. So for me at that point, I was like, I can't add any more things. I can't. And I think that will stop being a clinical psych, and you should do ministry. And I was like, at that time it was a no. And yet here I am. I'm like, now I have had a 3rd baby, and I'm like still doing stuff, running stories, having a good time. So, I don't know. I'm like, I'm not.
It's kind of cool. You've been kind of equipped along the way, right? Like, you've been meeting with people. It's like been a real, like a growth journey. It's not like you've not had any training either. Like you've actually had this kind of informal way that you've grown and trained into these vocational roles. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting considering the topic we've got, how we've got someone who has actually said no. And it's okay to say no sometimes, like when you weigh up where your life is at.
I mean, also what Alexia said, to be fair, like when I talked with my husband, so my husband knows me and, loves me, obviously. And he was like, one thing that he did say, because he knows me, he was like, look, a thing to consider is at the moment, you're doing ministry stuff because you love to do it and you enjoy it. But also when you get bored or, you are not enjoying that, like, say you want to move on from running this particular ministry. If you're on staff, you won't be able to. Which, like is probably fits well with my personality. I was like, and, now I'm doing this and I love this and I love interviewing and I love all the writing and all of that. And I don't know, who knows what may happen with it, but I'm having a good time.
I feel like I'd like to have a coffee with you sometime.
Let's be friends.
And we can continue the ministry pathway conversation.
This has become an intervention, isn't it? They're like, you've been tapped 3 times.
Yeah, the call is coming. Anyway, that was a little bit. That wasn't in Beck's plans for this episode, so I threw her under the bus.
Definitely not. I was like, I don't know. I'm here to facilitate.
Include or not include.
Yes, brilliant. Well, so Alexia, coming back to you as our special guest, if women do want to get in contact with you and like kind of have that coffee or like chat on the, you know what I mean? What would be the best way for them to kind of get in contact with you?
Yeah, well, probably the easiest way is through Trinity Theological College. So you can totally email them, ring them. If you're interested in ministry, haven't thought about it before, or you have and you've got questions, I might not have all the answers, but I would love to have a chat to you. So, yep, come and have a coffee with me. But I would recommend that challenge conference if like the thought of doing ministry is new to you. Then that is a really great place to explore it, and with lots of other people who have wisdom to offer.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. I just love like actually kind of where it's gone. Like there are multiple things to consider for women in ministry. Like it might be a life stage, but it's also like, your gifts and talents and being able to see other women doing things in a way that like you might want to do, but also being able to find like if that's not available to you in your church. Like I love those links of like Trinity, Equip, like Challenge Conference, NTS, like Perth Gospel Partnership and Trinity at Night. Like I will link all of those in the show notes because I think those are like nice jumping off points for even if you can't see it in your church, like there are other options for you. Brilliant. All right. Thank you so much, Alexia. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for the chat. It was great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Alexia.
That's it from us, friends. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you did, you can sign up to our free weekly newsletter called Stories I Tell You at Dinner. So you get essays, poetry, podcast episodes, everything, photo essays straight to your inbox on Wednesdays from March through to November from Christian women in Western Australia. If you'd like that, the link is in the show notes. Thanks for listening, guys.